What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of the Agent to CEO podcast, and we are in for a treat today. Chad, what's happening, brother?
John, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, looking sharp. And so,
Thanks, sir.
yeah, I'm really, obviously introduction through Ryan and just, conversation, being able to connect with you, man. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Just, my intuition, right? Kind of looking at, folks, obviously you've been in this game long enough and as well, but it's always, being able to come across somebody that has built a foundation off of solid principle. And it was one of the things that really made me lean in, with you in your story. And so I'm excited to be able to jump into that. I mean, there's so many different directions that we can really go, but Chad, I would love for you to just, give us a little bit of context, give a little bit of background, and, go as far back as you want, and just kind of, navigate the stories that have brought us to, the intersection of where we're at today.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. I could tell that we were going to get into that just from our first conversation the other day about this podcast. And of all the things we talked about, that was what you gravitated to. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm sure we'll get into a lot today, but I'm looking forward to that as well. So my story, the way this works out is I had absolutely no background in business whatsoever. Growing up, I had no desire. I had no money consciousness. That's kind of the way that I like to describe it. Growing up, I played soccer, ended up with a soccer scholarship to college, and I play guitar, still play guitar. Mm-hmm. And that was really the dream. My personal dream was to play guitar all day long, to travel the world playing guitar. And so I literally walked away from a soccer scholarship because I'd started a band in college, and walked away from the scholarship, went all in with music, got signed to a local label, developed a following locally. And maybe a year and a half into that, we recorded an album, and some people thought they were going to make money off of us going out to Hollywood and getting signed to a major label. So I think I was 20 years old. We got flown out to Hollywood, and with 40 of our fans, and we ended up playing a showcase concert in front of all the major record labels at the Whiskey A Go-Go as a 20-year-old. It was totally amazing journey. That was the journey upward. But then when we got those rejection letters over the next several months, I had no life skills at that point. And I didn't know how to deal with the rejection. And I just spiraled out of control. So by the time I'm 23, I'm at complete rock bottom, completely broken, can't even hold a job. And so the way I ended up in real estate is at that lowest point, my uncle reached out to me, and he was never a realtor, but he's always been in real estate. And he retired from passive income in real estate when he was 44 years old. And so that was that moment when I was at rock bottom, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know you're struggling. Why don't you come live with me for a while? I've got this 3,000 acre farm. It's got 75 miles of motorcycle trail. Why don't you come hang out with me?" And I took him up on it. So
yeah, I would have too.
Yeah, right. So we spent months, a couple months driving around, listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad it was probably on cassette.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we would go eat at a restaurant, and we would walk out of the restaurant, we get in the car, and you go, "Guess what? I own that building." And then we would go get a car wash, and we'd leave, and you'd say, "Hey, guess what? I own that car wash." And then we did all these things. And I think it really just opened my eyes that there was something else out there, maybe another way of achieving freedom. So I moved back to Texas, saved up some money, got my real estate license. The dream was Rookie of the Year, and I was nowhere close to Rookie of the Year. And so that's how it all got started for me.
I love that. So riding around with Uncle, what were like what were some of the main like principles that he really tried to instill into you that you kind of that part of that foundation, right, that we're talking about that we'll get into, but
Yeah.
is there anything that like you still to this day still think about or make decisions on or
Yeah.
base what you're going to do off of what, that time with him?
Yeah. So definitely part of the foundation came from that time with my uncle. Really, if for any of the listeners that are familiar with Kiyosaki, what he's really talking about is a couple of things, mainly the cash flow quadrant. So
Yeah.
when I look back on that season of my life, what really stands out to me is that I was chasing freedom through my own dream. And so
Mm.
what I saw that he had won freedom and he had won time freedom. And so when I moved back to Texas, I understood the concept of not just trading time for money from him. And I understood some of these things, but what I didn't understand, I didn't have enough life skills to even pull it off. So I knew I needed to have a positive mental attitude and I needed to do these things, but I ended up needing much more than that. So the way it played out for me is I got my real estate license. And then a couple of weeks after I got my real estate license, one of the guys in the office walks up to me. He says, "Hey, I see you're reading all these books. I can tell you're very focused, but here, just take a listen to this CD." And it was from a men's conference called The Men of Destiny. And the title of that CD was The Home Run Man, meaning like baseball. And in that message, it talked about a man of honor has to have vision, focus, tenacity, and faith.
Mm.
And so I got a hold of this CD. I had not really been to church since I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. And, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I couldn't do it on my own. So I was listening to this CD and I had just never heard of anything like this with what I call biblical strength or manhood with honor. And I pulled over on the shoulder road and just bawled my eyes out and drove over to my girlfriend's apartment and put the CD in and basically told her that day, like, this is what I'm committing to becoming. And so that was 22 some odd years ago, 21 and a half years ago. And that's my wife now. And so that's where the foundation really came from. It was the first spark was from my uncle, but then
He lit the fire.
the entire priority structure for my life came from what I learned from my pastor. I've been in the same church for 21 and a half years.
That's wild. That's so amazing. So what was the name of the CD? Who was that?
Dr. Gene Lingerfeld. The church is Faith Christian Center in Arlington, Texas. It's pretty
amazing.
wild. So in 2004, he had already been pastoring the longest of anyone in Arlington, and he's still the pastor of the church. So he was already the longest serving pastor 21 years ago, and he's still there.
Yeah, that's so powerful, right? When we're at those moments to where, I don't know if it's just completely broken down, but maybe completely open to really receive and willing to listen. And, it's like, how can we be more open and more receptive and more, from a true learner mindset? And, it's crazy when those things happen, right? To where we're able to, receive something and it just hits us and it just changes the trajectory of our life and what we're on. And more so like the way we think about things, and just sometimes we just need that framework, right? Like the honor framework of vision, focus, tenacity, faith, right? It gives you a foundation to then be able to build from. And, sometimes we latch on to different foundations and things that don't serve us. And it's that circle. It's who we're around. It's what we're consuming. It's what we're absorbing. And it's crazy, man, how sometimes the wrong advice, the wrong belief system, how it could, set you down a path that will take you decades to fix if you ever are able to fix it. Because most people, they latch onto it and they just don't, find themselves in a situation or being pushed to challenge those beliefs, or getting the people around them to challenge those beliefs to become better. And so that, that first, and just making, you made that declaration. I don't even know, is a commitment or a declaration more, more powerful, but you made that, and that just started the trajectory that your life is on.
Yeah, that's well said. When I look back on it all, I was a shooting star early. And so I just made a commitment that I'm never going to be a shooting star again. It goes even more so in, I look at what happened in my parents' lives, and I don't hold anything against them, but all that didn't work out. And so I think through, how are these decisions going to, I never have been willing to build the business at the expense of my family.
Yeah.
And so, and that, there's no judgment on that. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, but it just, because of what I'd went through, I made the decision that the reason why I would become great in business was so that all these other things would succeed. So that I know you wanted to get into it, but that became the purpose, and it is the purpose to have this priority structure, because what I'm interested in doing is having the best year ever every single year. Mm-hmm. And so that's, and we mentioned honor. That's why honor is one of the core values. Is we call it uncommon honor. So I want to demonstrate honor to the ones who show me the way, and I'm still doing that. Right. I'm still doing that 21 years later. And then my goal is to show uncommon honor towards my peers, and then uncommon honor towards the least of these, towards those who you would consider would be someone that could never help you. Mm-hmm. And because I know what it was like when I was helpless. Yeah. And so I just have never forgot. I wake up every day and I remember that what I was capable of at age 23 in my own strength. And that's where I started.
Yeah. Well, you built two different disciplines early on, right? The discipline of sport, and then the discipline of music, right? You built up two, and there's so many similarities, right? To be great at anything. It takes time, it takes the discipline, it takes the focus, it takes the tenacity. And in faith context, it's also having faith in the process too, right? And building those disciplines. And, that's for, kind of the organization and coaching program and everything, kind of as we were building coming up. That's the thing that we looked for, right? We didn't want to look to build somebody into a winner. We were looking for traits and attributes of success that they've put in the work to build disciplines on their own. And that was always one of the things that we looked for. Obviously, growing up in your neck of the woods, like I don't care if you won blue ribbon for your, best show pick, because that's discipline. That takes work to be able to achieve anything. And so, kind of our mantra is like, we don't create winners. We just help winners win bigger and faster. And, I thought a lot about that, over the years, and I don't even know why I even thought about it last night for some random reason that hasn't even been at the forefront of my mind. And I was like, just thinking through conversations and even the statistics in this industry, what do we have? 74% of agents didn't sell a home in 25, 74% of agents didn't sell a home in 24. It's going to be more of the same this year. Like that's not going to change. And more agents are going to get out. The top producers like yourself and Ryan are just going to continue to gobble up more and more market share is what's happening. And so I'm just thinking through, like, the people out there that are winning, like, they have a track record of winning. They have a track record of putting things in place to where they've been successful that let them into this life. And like being able to be disciplined, I mean, it never panned out, but you had enough skill and talent to get you to one of the most iconic places in the whole world to play music, as
Yeah.
well as, the discipline it takes to play any sport, to get into any college, and D1, D2, it doesn't matter, right? Enough in you to get a scholarship to go get school paid for. You're doing things right over an extended period of time for that to be true. So that, to me, that success foundation and the working hard is there. And then, then being able to, up on top of that. But I love the honor, and I love, unpack that. Like, what does that mean when you say, man, uncommon honor? Like, what does that mean? How do you convey that to your team, to those that you're cascading that out? They see that. What does that mean by definition?
Well, I like what you've just said there, to tie what we've just talked about together before I get to uncommon honor. You can have those success principles. You can have that, talent. Talent has a trajectory. I agree with you completely. You're looking for that talent that when you pour into them, they give you energy back because they just go and do what you teach. I agree with that completely. However, when you add that to the best priority structure, that's what I've always been after, because you can have all the talent. I call it the lie of fame. How many people do we see go to the top and then just destroy their life?
Mm-hmm.
Movies, athletes, politicians, you name it. And so that's why I was seeking the other part. There was a book that I read right around this time, and it was actually referenced in those first messages I heard my pastor preach on those CDs. And it's written by W. Clement Stone. It's really old, and it's called The Success System That Never Fails. See, I'm interested in that. You can be the most go-getter, the 10X lifestyle, crush it, hustle, grind, all that stuff. But if your body's falling apart, or your key relationships are falling apart, or there's this wake of destruction behind you, what good was it for us, right? So uncommon honor, to me, it's what's the easiest way to describe it? I would say sowing and reaping. So however I treat someone, I would want to be treated that way. If I'm dealing with an agent, a peer in a transaction, even though I'm representing my client's best interest, it still doesn't have to be a war between me and you on the other side of the table.
Right.
Or if I talk to, let's say, a buyer lead, and they from the sound of it, they may not ever get their life together to where they can actually buy a home. I don't treat them like they're less than human. And let's say I have a mentor, and at some point I've done some of the things that they've done. I don't go trying to lord it over them or act like I'm better than them. That's what uncommon honor is to me. It's just treating people the way that I would want to be treated.
Yeah.
From a leadership standpoint, it's two things. One, it's telling them the truth in the sense of showing them how to do it, not holding anything back. And then on the other side, it's telling them the truth even when they may not want to hear it because of the gaps that they have. And I think a whole lot of leadership is the ability to tell people the truth in a way that they could receive it. Most leaders, people that call themselves leaders, are not willing to say what needs to be said in any given moment. One thing I repeat constantly around here is, if at any point I'm unwilling to say what needs to be said in this environment, that's the minute that this environment will begin to die.
Say that again.
If at any point I'm unwilling to say what needs to be said in the environment, that's the moment that this environment will begin to die.
That's so good. That's so good.
I tell myself that, John, when that someone in the room says the wrong thing and you're tempted to just like let it go, but then everyone else in the room would hear what they just said, are you going to let that be the last thing that's said that gets permeated into the environment, or are you going to be the leader and are you going to step in and say what needs to be said?
Yeah. I love that. And it's in a way too, like what I'm hearing and just kind of even looking at, the values that we've leaned into over the years. It's really more of a very candid type of conversation, but in a kind way, not nice, but in a kind way. And that's,
Right.
telling them the truth, right? Being willing to have the difficult conversations, not afraid to work through the whole conflict resolution, not afraid to have, and those conversations are a lot easier when you're standing in truth. And
Yes.
it really helps, to navigate through that. And like, as you're talking, I'm just, my mind's just running through different situations and scenarios, and like where I've have failed as a leader, not saying
Sure.
things
Sure.
because of my people pleasing tendencies of growing up and always wanting to be a people pleaser and not wanting to, wanting everybody to get along and not wanting to have,
Right.
conflict. But there's so many great ways to be able to get into and curate and create that environment, Chad, to where you can be very candid and, speak in a way that people, hear the truth. You're speaking truth and calling them out, but also, in a way to where, and you said it earlier, right? And I it clicked, and I wanted to come back to it. But one of the things that you were describing with the man of honor, and you were kind of talking about it, but you were talking about uncommon honor amongst others that really can't help themselves, right? So to me, that's helping us get real clear on our leadership style. And
Yeah.
you're coming from a servant's heart, servant leadership, and that's the position we want to come from, right? Like all the different styles of leadership, and sometimes people will do things in return for them to do things. That's, more of a barter type of leadership. And so ultimately getting to the ultimate holy grail of the servant leadership. But and this is why I wanted to get into the values, because
Yeah.
you're
That's
laying the
where it goes
foundation, you're
next.
laying the foundation. That's where it goes. It's like, listen, this is what we, these are the shoulds and should nots. Like, this is what I believe. And this is, how we
Yeah.
approach, our community.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a sec. So we haven't really gone into it. We talked about me getting into real estate, and then the goal was rookie of the year, nowhere close. But then I started to build all these habits. And then I met a mentor. He had sold 215 homes the previous year. And it was right before the great financial crisis. And he said, look, if you do exactly what I teach in this class, you cannot fail. And I thought,
Mm.
okay, well, that works
Teach
for me because
I'm good at following
yeah,
directions. Teach me.
you're valid, you're valid and the track record's there. And I have been going through this intense 3 or 4 year period of really cleaning up my habits based on what I was learning in Faith Christian Center's environment. And so I just went all in and I replaced my wife's income. I became the individual agent of the year. I fell in love with leadership. And then, I was at KW for 17 years. During that time, we went from a little office of 50 agents to eventually becoming the most profitable Keller Williams office in the world 2 years in a row. And then I think it peaked around 600 to 700 agents. My team was the top team of the year 3 years in a row in that office. At one point, from like a July to July, we had sold 371 homes, 109 million, 3.2 million in commissions with like 12 agents. Just as dialed in as it could be. But what I was on a mission for was I have to keep growing. I can't just sit still. So I asked myself this focusing question. Now that we kind of understand, I don't want to go forward and then wreck everything. So my focusing question was, what do I have to put in place so that no matter how big everything gets, I would never have to compromise? And that's where my core values came from. And so I actually got on the phone. I called the HR department of Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
And I said, hey, how did Dave Ramsey do this? Because he's in the mainstream and everybody knows him, but they also all know what he believes. He's not getting into any trouble or anything. So how did y'all do it? And they basically, the HR department said, we have our core values. And then when we're doing interviews and things, we just tell who we are. We just say what we are, and we don't ask any questions. And then people self-select. They either run towards it or they run away from it, and either one's okay. So I have all this on my camera roll. I sat down with my team for an hour and a half, and we got a giant whiteboard out. And I asked them a question. I said, now, these can't be the things that we're aspiring to have. I want to know right now what is present in this environment that's changing your life. And we just wrote everything down for an hour and a half. And then over the course of about 6 weeks, I simplified it down into these core values. And so now that with the Chad Smith team, but then also with our coaching community, which is any agent of any brokerage could be a part of it, we lead with the core values. And so these 8 core values define who we are, what we believe, why we do what we do. And it's the predetermined way that we show up in the environment. And so the only time I'm ever rough with anybody is if they're in violation of what they already agreed to.
Yeah.
And that's what we needed to get to. That's how you have the permission to be strong or to be bold in that leadership, because you already said yes to this.
Yeah.
You already said yes to this. And it's all of our job to protect the environment that we all agreed is the reason we're here.
Yeah. That's so good. And I loved the process, right? And you were real clear. It's not what we aspire to, it's what we are.
It's not aspirational. Right.
And our process, you'll laugh at this. So we started a company out of our office with a gentleman by the name of Matt Wagner. We started Radio and Television Experts. And so that started with our office. Kinder was client number 1 for Matt. I handled for the first 2 years, 3 years, first 3 years, I handled all the back end, all the booking, all of the billing, everything, kept Matt, in line as much as you can. And obviously Jay running and gunning and helping Matt grow rate. And we had, Matt, hosting first rate event. So he held it at our office in Lawton, Oklahoma. And top in the world at the number 1 company in the world, which was KW at the time, Mr. Chad Goldwasser out of Austin, Texas, comes in. And Chad's kind of breaking down his business, and he gets into this thing about core values. And Jay and I are kind of just sitting back. I look over at him. He looks at me and he goes, core values. We don't have any core values. I said, I know we don't. And he goes, man, Chad's number 1 in the world. I like what Chad has. Let's just use Chad's. I go, okay, that's great. Let's do that. And I think a lot of people do, right? They borrow and they don't even really understand what they are. They just want to check the box and say they've got core values. And of course it was a complete disaster. We didn't even look at them. We had them, but we didn't do anything about it. And I forget, the moment where it was just a, eye-opening that we better get some real values in place. And we did pretty much the same exercise However, we just left ours on the whiteboard for a couple months and just let it really marinate. And we were like, okay, what do we really admire? That might've been the word. What do we really admire about that person? Like if we could take one thing away from them that they're like, we just absolutely love, what is it? What about that person? What about that person? Right. What about that person? And we let it marinate. We've had as many as 11. We've had all the way down to, 5, 7, 8 is kind of where it's hanging out about now. And same process, right? We let it marinate for a while before we ran out and got the tattoo, and they continue to evolve. And what's really wild, that took time, just like it took time with you. But what's so crazy now, like with AI, had helped a large merger of a team up in Canada at the end of last year come together. 3 different teams, 3 different cultures, 3 different value system. And so we start working on the vision, bringing everything together, and he's just feeding AI their values, the other team's values, the values coming together. Here's our vision. Where's go? hey, walk me through this. I want you to, interview me, ask me as many questions, one question at a time until you have enough information. I really want to distill it out. Man, it came out with the perfect 3 core values. It wordsmithed it in a way in like Chad in like 30 minutes of just work. Now listen, multiple decades to get there with the values to then be able to feed it, to distill it down in 30 minutes. That didn't happen in 30 minutes. That happened multiple decades, many different people to be able to drill it down. But it was really wild, right? You have 3 massive teams coming together to form one massive mega team. And the first thing they went to, they knew instinctively they needed to nail the vision and nail the core values before we can move on to anything else. And I was like, this is going to be something special, right? Because if you build it off of that foundation, like you have been able to, and just what I tell people, and I'm a big vision guy, and I love that you said the man of honor. The very first thing is, what's the vision, right? What's the vision? And like, I've left Kinder twice. And the reason was because the vision faded. And he knows, I mean, if he comes back to me and, says, hey man, here's the new vision. What do you think? If I get excited about it, I'll probably jump back on board. Right. And it's just the way I am. And not everybody wants to create the vision, but they want to be a part of a vision to where they feel they can make a difference and they can live the life they want to live. And that's why I tell leaders all the time, especially for somebody like you building a massive following, massive organization, which you have, like, if you didn't have no vision, your key people would be gone. They wouldn't be there.
Oh yeah. That's a big part of it. Right. So there's a cool concept. And this ties back to honor, where every dream is a dream inside a dream. Every dream is a dream inside a dream. So people get stuck on ego. I don't want to put my dream inside of somebody else's dream. Every dream's a dream inside a dream. Every dream's a dream inside a dream. So you just have to choose who you're connected to. But another one of my leadership frameworks is the moment that a leader becomes a limiting factor to talent is the moment that you get out of business with that talent. And I just became crystal clear on this. And so the day that there's an agent on the Chad Smith team, and he joined the last week of April 2012. He has 2 master's degrees. He joined for it was either $22,000 or $24,000 a year as an ops person. But he's always been a researcher. Up to that point, he had always been a researcher his whole life. So he wanted to learn everything about real estate before he ever became an agent. Well, now we're 14 years in. He sold 81 houses on the Chad Smith team last year while also helping me build systems. But I told him from the day I met him, I'm not afraid of you being great. And my commitment to you is that I will never become a limiting factor to you. So these are the things that I think leadership requires, right? How many people of all the people we come across ever like nail down that vision? But then who's willing to defend it?
Yeah.
Because the minute you stop defending it, it'll be over in no time.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That might be one of the best leadership frameworks. Anybody that's wanting to build anything that's going to attract and weather any storm, the leadership framework, I'm not afraid of you being great.
Right.
Like that is so good, brother. That is so good.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna let that one marinate. I'm definitely that's a writer downer for sure. That's absolute gold. I mean, that is absolute leadership gold, and it's so many. And one of my favorite kind of, because what gets in the way is ego, right? And one of my favorite concepts is outcome over ego. And ego is about being right. The goal is to get to right. And that's what I tell my team all the time, right? Like, I'm kind of going off the cuff, and I'm just like in a moment, and I'm like, listen, I could be 100% wrong, and it's not about me being right. It's about us getting to right. So
Yeah.
like, if I'm off base, please tell me, please tell me, please tell me. Like, I don't want to be right. I want us to get to right. And that falls right in there, right? Like, I'm not, like, it ain't about me, and I'm not
Right.
scared, and I will never be afraid of you being great. Like, that's like, I mean, just think of if you had a leader tell you that early on in your development,
Right. I
right?
do. That's my pastor, that's ultimately it, it's, and then I'm working to model that. And but it's very rare. So let's talk about this for a sec. A lot of the go-getters in real estate, they're driven. So there's typically go back to like what we talked about, sports or early achievement. There's that competitive nature. Well,
Mhm.
ultimately, competition is rooted in scarcity because
Mm.
somebody's got to win. Which means there has to be a loser. And so I was wired that way. So I had to choose to move beyond a competitive mindset. So the only person I'm competing against is my own potential, my own capacity.
How do you shift that, Chad? Right. I mean, I hear it. I hear it. It's okay. I can kind of get my head around it, but how do I actually put that into practice?
Well, it's going to go back to my belief systems. The first murder was due to jealousy.
Mhm.
And so if you go to Genesis, Cain and Abel are brothers. Abel brings his best to God, and then his brother brings some as an offering. And then it says in Genesis that Cain's his face was downcast. And then so my answer is right here. God says to Cain, why are you downcast? If you do what's right, will you not be accepted?
Hmm.
And so that's it. So to me, it's everything operates in seed time and harvest. And so I don't need to be concerned about whether or not John Kitchens crushes it and knocks it out of the park, because if I do the right things, I'm going to win.
Mhm.
And so the game is not about me versus someone else. The game is about me versus me. And so I think for me, the only way I made it out of it was once I realized that God was actually for me and that all I have to do is just do the right thing. That's how I got out of it. It was funny when we became the number one team in KW Arlington. When our team was number 5 or 6 in the office, I always got along with everybody. But then when we became number 1, I never fell out with certain people, but they fell out with me.
Mhm.
Right. And that's this competition thing. So we were walking in the office one day and there was this other team walking out of the office and they wouldn't even acknowledge that we existed. And I looked at one of the guys on the team and I said, don't they realize that we're not in competition with them? And my teammate said, well, you're right. They're not our competition, but I'm pretty sure we're theirs.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people are stuck in this, but if you're a leader and you're threatened by your people, you're never going to go big.
Mhm.
You're never going to go big. You're going to run off all the talent every time.
Yeah.
Well, how are you going to do something great over the long haul if you're running everybody off the minute they start to get it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just you're insecure in your role, right? I'm afraid of you being great.
Right.
That's the exact opposite is what it is. And so how is it the surrounding, is it the mentor, is your pastor that helps you kind of navigate and work through that? Is like, for you, overcoming those beliefs, working through those situations, like, and just like anything, right? It's always trial and error, right? It sounds good until you actually put it in practice and you're standing in the fire. So for you, how were you able to learn that, embrace it, and really where it's really rooted in for you, and now you just live by it?
So it was out of necessity. In '09, I won the individual agent of the year. So there I was standing there in January of 2010 with the award, like number one individual agent of the year. And my first daughter's 1, and then my wife's expecting. And I'm thinking, this is not, I'm grateful, but this is not it.
Yeah.
There's not enough capacity here for me to accomplish what's in my heart to do. So I just basically studied leadership. There was probably at least a 3-year, maybe 3 or 4 year period where the only books I read were about leadership. And so my first two mentors, the real estate agent mentor and then my pastor. Now I was still learning from them, I'm still learning from my pastor on, how to apply what he's teaching. But I there was a second lens that I looked at great leaders on, and it was, how are they dealing with that trouble in the environment? Why do they say what they say when there's a challenge? And so I started to look at everything through a leadership framework, and I read every John Maxwell book you could imagine. And then I volunteered on all these, because John Maxwell recommends this. I volunteered as a leader in all these volunteer roles, unpaid volunteer roles, because if you want to test your leadership skills, just go lead a bunch of volunteers where you can't lord a title or a position or money over them.
Yeah.
And so I just that's what I do, is I just immerse myself in it. And because I haven't worked nights or weekends since 2009, because of my priority structure, because my wife, I'm there, I'm investing in my family. My kids, I've driven my kids to school every single 95 to 98% of all the days they've ever gone to school since K4 started.
Yeah.
I go with them to the week-long summer camp, every game, every event. I have their entire teenage years. I have a relationship with them. There's no period of the teenage years where people say you lose them. That has nothing to do with me. Well, how could I do that? The only way I could do that was by figuring out what my framework for leadership was and then actually living it out. So I've led and empowered and fulfilled what my commitment was to great team members, because it mattered to me to actually be able to be there for my wife and my kids and to serve at church and to do all the things that I do.
Well, I mean, you got this. Everybody has the ingredients. You were just given the recipe, and you trusted the recipe. You had faith in the recipe, and you were very fortunate to have a great mentor, multiple mentors in your life that didn't lead you down a wrong path, but led you down a path to where you're able to be today.
I agree with that 100%. And at the same time all this has happened, I've watched hundreds and thousands of people leave those environments.
Yeah.
Or find.
Why do you think that is?
So this is something I've been talking about a lot lately. Why is it, in the same way that the minute you start, tell me if this is true for you, the minute you start talking about, let's say, organizing your morning and having a morning routine, or saying business affirmations, or having a vision board, or writing out your goals, or tracking your KPIs, paying somebody to do a profit and loss statement, all the things that are actually the ingredients that would help you. The minute you start talking about them, people start saying things to you like, oh yeah, I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm. I tried that. That didn't work.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But yet, if you walked up to these same people and you started talking about the Dallas Cowboys or the Patriots or the Seahawks or you name the sports, or you started talking about politics to some of them, or you started talking about celebrities or whatever's going on, you could have the exact same conversation about that stuff over and over again, and no one would ever go, yeah, I've already heard that about the Dallas Cowboys 36 something odd years in a row. It's like the exact same season, right? But they never say that when it's inconsequential. They only do that. And so I think it's almost like a defense mechanism or like a reverse polarity of a magnet, where they're literally repelling success and the things that can help them.
Yeah.
So that's the only explanation for it, because it's how what I talked about this in our meeting this morning. What you actually get to choose what you see in other people.
Mm. Mm.
Like what you choose. What do you see in your clients? Are you constantly complaining about the troubled clients, or are you one of these people? I've heard all kinds of agents say, their clients are stupid or this or that, or do you get road rage when you're driving and you just focus? Well, what do you choose to see in your spouse?
Yeah.
Be focused on what do you see in your children? Like there's all nobody's perfect. There's all kinds of pros and cons in everybody. So what are you choosing to see? And so for me, having been in the same church for 22 years, I'm just choosing. I'm intentionally choosing to see what I need to see because I can still grow in that environment.
Yeah. Man, there's something to be said with a commitment to longevity. It says a lot about the environment, the leadership, but also says a lot about you. And I obviously being in this coaching game for 14 years now. I've got clients that I've been working with for 14 years, and the ones that more stability, like they have more stability in their life, they have more foundation in their life. They're rooted in truth. And there's so many out there that like are looking for the quick fix, right?
Oh
They're
yeah.
looking, they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're just they're just shuffling, chairs on the Titanic. They're just not really like, all right, let's get this out of the way. Where's the real issue? Let's fix that. And then we're going to go fix the next thing. Then we'll fix the next thing. We'll fix the
Right.
next thing. And, you know, I'm the same way, right? Like, I mean, I have Matt. I got introduced to Matt, 4 or 5 years ago. I'm still with him, right? Like, are there times to where, I'll go a couple months and just like happening, but then just commit it to it, right? And there's just something to be said about that. People that, are committed to do the work versus looking for the easy button. And the easy button is work. I mean, it's just do the work. That's the easy button.
Oh, you made me think of two things that are really important right here. One is we talked about having great people stay with you, right? Because I'm still helping my pastor, my leader's dream and vision come to pass. I can expect to have other people stay with me to help my dream and vision come to pass. So because I did it first and I'm still doing it, I can expect the same in my own environment. And then the second thing I'll say to what you were just talking about is, I was a KW guy, and they have really, really amazing agent training.
Yeah.
Some amazing agents there. I'm so grateful for that time. I would not say that they've been well known as being like the leading in the industry for marketing, right? So I got into a different environment when I began this to understand marketing. And it's hilarious to me that there's like the marketing script that you fill in your calls to action with, your headlines with, is how to achieve the pain without, or how to achieve the desired result without the pain.
Right.
It literally feeds like the magic bullet train.
Yeah.
And so once I've wrapped my head around all that, I just went the complete opposite direction. And so the way that I've built what I've built over the last couple of years is I took the consistency of what I built in my morning meetings, and I said, look, no one's going to be able to say that I attracted them and then I was nowhere to be found. So I'm just going to turn the morning huddle I have with this $100 million team into a daily broadcast. And I'm just going to pour into whoever shows up 260 plus times a year. And then I'll make it their fault. If they don't succeed, it'll be on you, because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there every single day. Unless it's a major holiday, I'm sitting right here with my game face on and I go live, and then I give them all the answers. And then I'm just looking for the winners to help them win.
That's it. I love it. That's so good, man. And I love that with, the daily, and I mean, it goes back to, kind of what we were talking about, just even how you were built, being able to build two disciplines at a young age. But you said some absolute gold in there. I'm not going to let it just slide on by.
Okay.
It's a, and being a little bit older, grandparents probably more so than parents, a little bit older, you know, generation. And I think a lot of this is obviously rooted in faith and in church. But what you said about I was so focused on helping others achieve their vision,
Yeah.
that if I'm helping and if I'm modeling that behavior and that leadership style, it's going to be contagious and people are going to see it, and then they're going to want to help me achieve my vision. So it just cascades, and it continues to rip the ripple effect of being able to do
Right.
that. And that's just absolute gold. It's just an absolute reminder, right? Like if you come from that positioning, and you said it earlier, right? I mean, this is all another to your leadership style, right? It goes right into that, from you really truly embodying and what it means to be a servant leader in all that we do. And it's the ultimate, right? It's what we're all striving to get to. And yeah, do we bounce around to, sometimes we're a little selfish, of course. Sometimes we're a little selfless, of course. Sometimes we want to barter, of course. But where do we live? And man, you're living in that servant leadership role. So Chad, obviously through, decades with your church and with your pastor, almost 2 decades in the KW ecosystem. I mean, you're definitely, doors are opening for the top of the top rooms, for
Yeah.
the level that you guys have been operating at. But you mentioned, obviously reading all the Maxwell books, but were there any other leadership books that you dove into, that, like, one that still sits on your desk that you reference back to, that really helps you, in any type of leadership situation that you'll go back to?
Yeah. It's called Wooden on Leadership. John Wooden, Wooden. He won
Mm.
he won 10 national championships with UCLA and had 2 undefeated seasons. And a lot of this, just executing on the plan, I could even attribute some of the non-competitive side to Wooden, because that John Wooden, I mean, 10 national championships, 2 undefeated seasons.
Remarkable.
He didn't even do typical attraction. Like, they didn't do college recruiting. And he also didn't do scouting reports on the teams that they played against. The only thing that they did is focused on fundamentals. They had a pyramid. They had a pyramid of all their core values that he taught, and then they just worked on executing on their game plan. That's what I'm doing. So I literally, on my phone right here, those are my 8 core values, and I have my own pyramid. Right.
Oh, I love that.
So that's ultimately what I'm doing. And something that just came to mind is I mentioned that I started this coaching community, and I didn't want the brokerage to be a limitation, because it's just, these are the core values. If you're in alignment, come be part of it. We'll grow together. Well, because that was going so well, a startup brokerage came along, which I have no desire to be a broker. Like, I believe that when you have your realtor hat on and you're serving your clients, you're a fiduciary. So it doesn't even really matter what you believe. You're there to put their interests ahead of your own.
Yeah.
So when I met them in the startup brokerage, I said, hey, I'll help you in the best way I can, but I just want to make sure that while I'm doing this thing over here, that's my own coaching community, that you're okay with that. And they were like, yeah, no, we would never interfere with that. We want you to do that. Well, now I have another person that I'm helping them fulfill their vision, their dream. And so I love that. Like, I love helping leaders fulfill their vision. And then I have hundreds, if not thousands at this point, people helping me fulfill my vision. And so to me, you said it earlier, I think it's only an ego to think that you're the only one with a vision.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just looking for alignment. And so, I'm helping Realty of America fulfill their vision. I'm helping Eddie Garcia and Mark Demas. They asked me to be the director of education for that entire company. So I spent a whole year and I built like end to end everything that I could think of that would empower agents and gave that into that environment. Well, that's just another seed sown so that I know that I can go even further and meet more and more people, and my reach would be even greater to meet more people to talk about what I love talking about, which is the core values of the Real Solution.
Mm.
Oh, I don't think I told you
So
the name of the coaching community, the Real Solution. So
the Real Solution.
the Real Solution. So the name of it comes from a lunch I had with one of my best friends. And so this is way back like 2010. He was a rookie at Keller Williams. He had been working on the oil fields and had a major accident with his leg. And he thought, I've got to get out of this or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So he's a rookie agent, young man, early 20s. And he's like, I want to pick your brain. I'm going to take you to lunch. So, all right, let's go. So we go across the street. We sit down. He's a high D. He's just direct. He's like, so how'd you do it? And I said, well, do you want the Keller Williams answer or do you want the Real Solution? And he was like, oh man, give me everything. And that's when I walked him through like, hey, I have this priority structure because I don't want to have one. I don't want to go forward and make a bunch of money and then everything come crashing and burning. I said, so I put God first and then my wife next, second only to God, and then my children after that. And then I pursue excellence in business to serve everyone I have an opportunity to serve. And you look at it to this day. Actually, tonight, two of my daughters are playing in the state semifinal basketball game for our church's private school. And his son will be playing on Thursday in the state playoffs for our church's private school. So, that's a 15-year relationship right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there have been dozens and dozens of people. And what I wanted, my goal is just to let my light shine. And then they come to me and say, well, what is it? And I'll say, well, do you want the brokerage answer or do you want the Real Solution?
I love it. Yeah. That's so good. Ties right in. The naming convention was right there for you. It's so good. It's funny. You were talking about, the priority structure, and I read, I don't know, end of last year, right at the beginning of this year, but I think it was kind of a study, if you will, on individuals in their early 90s, right? Kind of what their priority structure is. And in this order, they go, it's always faith, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think, early on, church for me was, I didn't have a choice, right? So it was one of those things. And the second that I had a choice, I ran away from it, right? Just because it was just like, I didn't have a choice, and it was like, kind of rebel against it. And, but first is faith, and then second is family, then friends. And they joke, right? You got to put your friends up there because you need somebody you need some pallbearers. So you got to have some friends. And this is coming from 90-year-olds, right? Given this perspective. And so, hey, and they all admit, right? Hey, is out of whack. I wish I would have got this in this order a lot sooner. Faith, you got to have the family, because you want people to be hanging out with you when you get to this age. You got to have some friends. You need some pallbearers. Then your fitness.
Yeah.
Then your finance.
Yeah.
And so taking the 5 F's, and that's coming from 90-year-olds. That's the order. And, I think a lot of folks struggle with that framework. Being able to get great mentors, get the right books, listening now to the right podcasts, getting in the right rooms, getting into the right churches, getting into the right locations. Environment is everything, right? Environment is greater than willpower.
That's
one
great.
of my favorite quotes, and especially it ties into environment. It's a Nipsey Hussle quote, and he's like, listen, if you look at the people in your circle and they don't inspire you, you don't have a circle, you have a cage.
Mm,
And it's just that constant reminder of always, if you're going to audit anything, audit that circle, audit that friends list, audit those mentors, audit the what you're listening to, audit, who's coaching you, who's leading you.
yeah,
And I'm a firm believer too, right? Like if looking at those 5 things right there, do you have a coach and a mentor in every one of those areas that's
right.
helping you to grow and improve? Because it's constant work, like what you've been down the path for multiple decades,
Yeah.
and knowing you ain't slowing down.
No, no, no. I'm just getting started. What you said there is spot on, and I'll add this to it because it 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 is in addition to everything you just said. Because I agree with everything you just said. In this modern day, either you train the algorithm or the algorithm will train you.
Yes.
And so you have to be so aware right now that how much time I haven't studied this, so I don't know this, but it seems that the phones are becoming more magnetic. They have a greater ability to hold our attention
Mm-hmm.
without us. I mean, I can't explain that. I don't know that. I haven't studied it, but I'm becoming more and more and more intentional on, okay, so what is this algorithm going to feed me? What am I going to permit to be? Now, I've always been pretty strong on this. I mean, I'm very careful about what comes in through my eyes and my ears, but I'm just more aware with AI, because you realize that everybody that watches this, hopefully they realize that when you scroll, that's AI. That type of AI has been around a whole lot longer than interfacing with ChatGPT or Grok or one of those. And so it's just in the same way, if your friends aren't inspiring you, is your feed inspiring you?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Fix
It's
it.
the same thing. Right.
That's the thing, right? Like laughing with anybody or their coach, you hear them, you're like, man, my feed is trash. And I'm like, well, you caused that. Like that's on you. You did that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the default is negative. Like
Always.
you go pull a brand new iPhone out of the box and you create a brand new like identity email address, and you just tell them you're your age, and it will send you the recipe for destruction.
Yeah.
100%. And so that's how serious we have to be about it. It's your life. What are you going to do? What are you going to choose to focus on?
So good, brother. Chad, we can go on for days, man. I really, really appreciate you carving out the time, jumping in here. I knew this was going to be absolutely fun. I mean, I have notes upon notes upon notes, and like there's so many great little nuggets that came from that, and can't wait to go back through and re-listen to a lot of the things that you said. There's so much truth and meaning in a lot of the things that you shared. So brother, appreciate you a ton for jumping in here and sharing your wisdom, and man, I can't wait to run it back and do it again with you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome, and I'll see you on the next one.
You got it. Guys, connect with Chad. I know we've been scrolling down here. Best way to follow at DFW Real Estate Team, Chad Smith. Chad, any other ways that they can get connected with you? Best way to get plugged in?
Yeah, that handle is actually our team handle. So my personal Instagram is at Chad Smith Real Solution, or you could go to therealsolution.com.
Okay. I love that. It's good stuff. Guys, get out there, follow Chad. He is definitely someone to pay attention to in this industry, doing things the right way, making decisions off of our values. And man, I'm excited to watch the continued growth. And I know our paths will cross many, many times.
Awesome, John. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thanks, guys. See you.